Welcome to another podcast of Field Talk against urban issues. And now, your host, U.S. Army Ranger, published author and university professor, Dr. Aaron Bryant.
You know, you have people who are following orders. U.S. Army Major General James Carlton, you know, I'm assuming he's following orders, and he's burning villages. He's burning the livestock. He's butchering people. He's destroying water sources, and he's taking capture of Navajos and Apaches in the tens of thousands. Now, this started back in 1864. This has continued to be the storybook. Prisoners were forced up to 450-mile death march. 450 miles, they made people walk. There's actually, you can look this up. It's called the Long Walk. And along the way, you had hundreds of people succumb to exhaustion and die. And apparently there's reports of estimations of more than that, 1,500, 2,000 more have died in the camps. And that's from the sickness and the starvation. I mean, we have the things that we have done in our history is horrific. The Navajo Nation by area is one of the largest, you know, it's like larger than 10 states. You take West Virginia, Maryland, you take Hawaii, put it in there, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Connecticut, Delaware, Rhode Island, throw in probably Puerto Rico, all right? That's how big we're talking. The United States literally took over this territory in 1848. And that was, if you know your history, that was during the Mexican-American War. You know, they fought back. We have stories of them fighting back. We have stories of Native American heroes. We've labeled them as savages. We've labeled them as in all kinds of different ways to justify. But again, I'm talking about how we have learned about the history, and yet what are we doing now? The federal government proposed a deal. They said they'll provide basic services such as healthcare, housing, and education, okay? And this is for, again, the Navajo lands, the Diné's. In 1866, there was a treaty between the United States and the tribe of Indians, and you know, and that was sort of as an exchange, a return of a portion of their ancestral homelands. Now, I find it interesting that in my research, they actually said ancestral. Now, I'm going to fast forward with you my experience. I used to work for the Army Corps of Engineers, and I was responsible for the Sacramento River flood bank. And one of the things that I was responsible for is the project manager of this, working with all of the different construction companies and responsible for, you know, fortifying the flood banks, was that when we would do construction, or even prior to that, we had to work and consult with Native American tribes because this is their land. And one of the things I always found interesting was that if we were to ever find anything, anything that even looked like a bone, we would immediately bring them out and we would have to investigate to find out. All construction halted. Because again, this is their ancestral land. So I find it interesting that we're talking about we asking them for a portion of their land. That alone tells you who was here first. The exchange was one of hundreds of American Indian treaties. That's the thing. And that has been ratified since 1778. The Navajo Nation, again, American Indian Territory, covers about 17.5 million acres, 17,544,500 acres. Now, do the math, that's like 27,400 and something square miles. Okay, occupying portions of northeastern Arizona, southeastern Utah, northwestern New Mexico. Okay, so that's a lot of area. Now, That's that time, because they've already lost a lot of land. We've already pushed them westward. And this is literally the largest land area retained by an indigenous tribe in the United States. Here's the shocking part. Government officials, they refused to honor it. They got the land, but they refused to honor the deal. In the 1950s and 60s, the federal government passed legislation to terminate its legal obligation to the tribes. Can you believe that? There's an act, 1975. It's called the Indian Self-Determination Education Act. It recognizes that tribal sovereignty enabled native nations will run their own hospitals, schools, police departments, and other programs. And this will be funded by the federal government. That's why we see now how you have tribal land and you know, they kind of take care of their own. And about half the Indian country healthcare programs, even today, is run by the tribes. Did you catch that I said that it'll be funded by federal government? Well, yeah, that was the agreement. Money did not come, at least according to the research that I saw. There's a senator. I'm not sure if he's still in office right now. He's a Democrat out of New Mexico. He said the underfunding has specifically been in areas that would have helped the Navajo Nation deal with this epidemic that we're going through right now. He was the vice chair of the Committee of Indian Affairs. So people are aware. People understand. Now, they don't associate this with veterans like I'm doing it, because honestly, what I see is you got the Native American and Alaskan natives who have been on the forefront of everything that has been a part of this country, and their dependents and family members are being treated as such. Now, there is some positive news. I don't want to close the show with all this negativity. The VA, and you guys heard me say this before on many other shows, the VA is getting better. They are currently consulting with American Indians and Alaska Native tribal governments right now to develop partnerships and enhance access to the services, the benefits of the veterans and their families. So VAs, they're doing something. We have programs out there. You have the Native American Direct Loan Program. You have the Office of Tribal Government Relations. I mean, they're getting, I shouldn't say getting, they've always had some form of programs, organization, associations, but we're starting to see that it's formalizing into something on the other side. There's a product coming out of all this, but there's a lot of work that still needs to happen. The VA's Office of Tribal Government Relations, OTGR, they've stopped outreach to a lot of the reservations and tribes, according to some of the tribal governments' reports. The last report came out was in 2018, and nothing has happened since then. Right now, we're hearing that there's a recent movement by Congress to assist Native Americans in filing and basically trying to get VA disability claims, some specific related to funding, promoting tribal veteran service officers. You guys know I did a show on VSOs. We've had a guest on the show and how important a VSO is, but yet you need to be able to have somebody who's specific with tribal entities. So VA is working on that. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear that it's making any movement. The future health of Native population during this epidemic is not looking good. They're underfunded. Okay, this was a long show and I apologize. I probably should have broke it up. I should have focused on the history of Native Americans and the veterans and then talked about maybe the healthcare related to it. But I think I wanted to more importantly just bring this to your attention. So I'm going to close out by, reminding you that what this show's about is mental health, veteran support. We're providing guidance related to trauma. We're trying to provide information. And this information is about history of heroes. We have a courageous culture of people who literally outnumbered all of the other nationalities. They were the first to walk the grounds of this country that we call home. And yet we're treating these people, the American Indians and Alaska Natives, we're treating them and their families, their dependents, like it doesn't matter. I get there's other cities around this country that has a very low poverty level. I grew up in Compton. I know. You don't have to tell me. I grew up in a small little 2-bedroom house with a family of 6. I had my bed, my 2 brothers who was sharing a bed, and my little sister in the crib, all in this little tiny room, probably about the size of my office. And yet we still had running water. I had access to the supermarket. I know because my mom would make me walk to the store with food stamps to buy milk. So I know it was within walking distance, even though when I was a kid, I thought it was so far. But yeah, it's within walking distance, a lot better than what these Native Americans have. So to me, it means we can still do better because we have it better. So what do we do for those who are literally our neighbors? What do we do for those whose families have encouraged their family to continue fighting for this country? We want to walk around and say, thank you for your service. Thank you for serving. I even talked about that on one of my shows and the difference of what that means. And they are definitely serving. It doesn't seem like they're bitter. It doesn't seem like they're upset. It doesn't seem like they have an agenda. It seems to me because they were first to be in this country, they believe in this country and they're doing everything they can to support this country. And I'm not talking about country as in the politics and the people. I'm talking about the soil, the land. We're talking about their forefathers and the blood that they bled that's in the ground. They're doing it for that. They're continuing that history proudly. And yet we are teaching our kids to not go in the military. We're teaching our kids that this race is not a good race. Kids are learning the differences of nationalities. We're treating our law enforcement as if they're the enemy. I mean, we're just doing so many things that I'm still not comprehending to why that's so important when we forgot that I think honestly, a lot of this would be solved or resolved by just the nature of human kindness. And we got to start by including everybody in that. That guy who had his knee on that man's neck, if he had been educated on human kindness throughout seeing our country, our politics, everybody demonstrating human kindness, it's possible that he would not have done what he did, and therefore we wouldn't even have so many of the things that we're seeing right now. So I think a lot of that, what I'm trying to say is it starts with us. And I don't know if that means the top level or if that means at the lowest level. But if you're listening to this podcast and if you understand what I'm trying to get at and you have any influence whatsoever, or just want to be able to support, again, on my YouTube page, on the podcast page, you'll see links of organizations that are making a difference. They're looking for donations. They're looking for volunteers. They're looking for support. Do not be afraid to do that. I know we're only one person and there's so much to do, but pick your battles. Well, that's my show. My name is Dr. Bryant. I want to thank you again for listening or watching if you're paying attention on YouTube. Continue to follow me, subscribe with me. I'll continue to bring you information that's important, critical, educational. We've got guests coming online soon to continue providing resources, community opportunities. And honestly, we want to continue to keep this going so we can be able to protect each other. That's my show. And remember, someone is always listening. And that someone is not just me. So do not be afraid to reach out. I'll talk to you soon. My name is Dr. Bryant. Thank you for listening or watching.
Thank you for listening to Field Talk. Please visit us on your favorite podcast channels or YouTube for past and upcoming shows with experts and guest speakers.